Good morning, everyone. Yesterday, in a bipartisan, bicameral way, the Senate came together and passed legislation that'll keep over 600,000 kids from losing access to health care. And I will tell you that in a few hours, the Assembly will follow and do the same thing. Yesterday, also in a bipartisan, bicameral way, we came together to solve one of California's most pressing problems, and I am convinced that before we adjourn next week, we will have a comprehensive solution to the state's water challenges. And so today, we're coming together in the same fashion to launch a real effort to reform our system of government and make that government work better for the people of California. We are forming the Joint Select Committee on Reform, and we will begin meetings and hearings that will continue throughout the interim. You've heard us talk about this before. You know that we have been working on this in terms of what the committee would do for a while, but now we are ready to actually launch the committee. And I'm pleased to announce that the chair on the Assembly side will be Assemblyman Mike Feuer, who has put in many hours in collecting all of the thoughts and the ideas from the various Assembly members on what they want to see in the whole reform process. But let me just go over the goals. Making government more customer-friendly, giving Californians more value for their tax dollars by making government more efficient and accountable, cutting through the gridlock caused by outmoded rules and undue partisanship. And I think you have seen over the last few months, the Pro Tem and I really seek to do that, and challenging the whole culture of this institution and trying to go about work in a new way. Untangling a relationship between state and local government, consolidating agencies and functions so that they make sense and save money. Within these broad guidelines, I'm excited about the opportunity that we have here and how you will see us work throughout the rest of the year, and then beginning in January, present a series of legislative ideas to bring before both bodies when we come back into session. And with that, Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for your leadership and for once again working across the corridor here, so to speak, and to have the Senate and Assembly work together on really what is probably the most important challenge we face in California, and that is fix what we know is broken. I have named to be the co-chair of this committee from the Senate side, Senator Mark DeSaulnier, who you all know well as a can-do legislator and a reformer who has worked all year on a whole package of reforms. And between Mark and Mike and all of the other interested members, we intend to make something positive happen here. I want to make 3 points. The current system is not working for anybody. It is not working for California. California's current crisis-a-week way to govern is not creating confidence that representative government can solve the people's problems. 3, there are plenty of great ideas out there. And I think it is a very healthy thing that organizations like California Forward and the Bay Area Council are touting reform and actually taking steps to take action themselves. But those of us in elective office have the obligation, and frankly, we have the opportunity to have what would be equal to our own constitutional convention, to take up those ideas which are right in front of us, and that we know are essential if we're going to govern more effectively into the 21st century to make those changes. 13 years ago, the California Constitution Revision Commission, charged with recommending to the legislature constitutional reform to improve the function of state government, wrote the following: government must operate more efficiently. The state's governmental system developed in the 19th century will not be adequate for the 21st century. The statement is as true today, maybe more true today than it was 13 years ago. And so there are some challenges, as you know. It requires a 2/3 vote within the legislature to even put questions of constitutional reform on the ballot for the people to decide. All right, we go into it with our eyes wide open, but working in collaboration and partnership with some of these outside groups, the legislature and state government can take the lead in reforming itself, and that's what we intend to do.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, Pro Tem. I want to begin by saying what this process really ought to be fundamentally about. It's about creating the conditions for California to have innovative, efficient, successful government. We have to earn Californians' faith in our capacity to lead, and we have to do it now. And so I envision this process as one which will be very ambitious, where we draw on the best ideas not only here in California, but throughout the nation. This is going to be a concrete exercise where we make every effort to collaborate across the aisle with a work product that will emerge in a few months that will propel California ahead. Now, to do that, we need to address several different categories of issues, one of which is reforming our budget process. Another of which, as the Speaker mentioned, is breaking through undue partisanship so we can find the common ground wherever possible. It's about thinking about the relationship between state and local government, rethinking that, and finding ways to make government even more efficient than it is now. It's about reducing the influence of special interests here and making government more transparent and more constituent-friendly. So these are the broad categories in which we're going to work. There are multiple specific ideas that we intend to address in this process. The bottom line to all of which is we have a key moment to seize. The Pro Tem referred earlier to the last constitutional revision effort in the 1990s. It began in 1994 when there was a real crisis in front of the legislature. But 2 years later, when the Commission came forward with recommendations, the crisis had passed, and therefore very little was actually effectuated. We need to learn from that history. We have a moment in time now on which we cannot afford to look back and say we squandered it. This is a moment for us to take advantage of, and so we're going to act with urgency, we're going to act in a concrete way, and we're going to deliver for the residents of California.
Well, first let me just tell you how nice it is to be here. A few days ago I thought maybe life would be different, but my level of masochism hasn't been satisfied by running for Congress. I want to try to actually reform government in California. Let me first thank both of our leaders, Speaker Bass and the Pro Tem, and I've had discussions with both of them about my own personal belief that this is a historic opportunity for us in this building to lead California in such a way. Because of the challenges we have enormous opportunity because the status quo just doesn't work. And to work with Assemblymember Fuhr, my good friend, it's my belief that it's my commitment, and I believe that we are going to deliver on meaningful suggestions to the legislature and to the citizens of California. We have a structure of governance that's 131 years old. The Constitution was written when there were less than 1 million people in California. It's been amended more than any other constitution in the United States over that period of time. We have the fiscal crisis of budget box balloting that we only can have full control over 7% of our budget. So clearly the system is broken. We need to fix it. Is this going to be different? Well, we have a commitment from our leaders that this is going to be different. Many people have tried to force change from outside the building. There have been many attempts, and there are currently many pieces of legislation to do meaningful change. I look at the next 3 months as being this wonderful historic opportunity to really change California and to do it in a way that others have failed at. But we will come back to California and show that these institutions can do the work in a bipartisan way, in a bicameral way, so that Californians would be better served in the future. I look forward to a wonderful 3 months with a product that we come back with that is truly meaningful.
Questions?
To answer a few questions, I have to leave in about 5 minutes for water meeting.
Can I explain to you about it? Yeah, it's the same bill that we'll be taking it up later on today, AB 1422. And what you have here is a collaborative effort between the First Five Commission, between the health plans, and between Mr. Mibb. And essentially, the health plans are agreeing to impose a voluntary tax upon themselves. This way, it will save 600,000 children from being disenrolled from healthy families. And the first 5 commission contributed $81 million. So I'm very excited because given the devastation of the governor's blue pencil cut after we came to the last budget agreement, you know, this will be our way of restoring that.
Sure. We're going to begin to discuss these reforms very soon. We're going to be meeting frequently and regularly throughout the fall. We'll come back in the next session. There may be ideas that we can effectuate even before the next session. But we'll certainly have legislation for next session that will emerge from this process. You refer to the ballot. There are really 3 categories of items before us. One are things that we can do ourselves internally that don't require legislation to make this legislature work better. Another are items that require legislation, and we'll be taking up a number of those issues. The third are things that the voters have control over ultimately. And we intend to address some of those as well because we have expertise to lend to the process. We intend to have a transparent, open process throughout California to engage them on those ideas. And we'll see if something emerges that the legislature itself can put on the ballot.
Are those expected to be on the 2010 ballot? You can reach consensus and get them on?
We'll see what the time frame is. We're going to work as fast as we can and as comprehensively as we can.
How many members on the committee? Where do you see an area of bipartisan support for the reforms? Where are you going to start with? What sort of things that you think you can get agreement from the Republicans on?
Well, the first thing I want to say is ideas that I'll mention in a moment are those that we need to consider. This is not a matter of directing or dictating what's going to happen. These are open items for discussion. And Mr. DeSaulnier and I have discussed the fact that we're going to sit down and meet. We haven't done that yet. Our vice chairs will also be meeting with us, and that hasn't happened yet. But having said that, one can envision ideas like this. We might consider performance-based budgeting, a matter about which there is both a pending Democratic bill and a pending Republican bill. We might consider the cycles on which we budget, contemplating the possibility of budgeting over a 2-year rather than a 1-year cycle, talking more about reserves, a whole array of other issues that, again, we're open to many permutations about, but about which members of both parties have expressed interest. And I'm among those who believes that we can cut through undue partisanship here, and I think that among the things we should consider are efforts to incentivize bipartisanship in the way we govern our houses.
10 in each house, 10 members in each house, 7 Democrats, 3 Republicans.
So it's the same recipe for gridlock as you've got going on right now. Yeah, you have.
Oh, you're always so good. I don't think.
Right off the bat, you're setting up a majority situation that when it comes to a 2/3 vote, you're going to be right back.
You know, I don't think so. I'm sorry that you see it that way. I do think, and I think that Assemblymember Fuhr laid out a couple of items that we know that there's already, if you have a Democratic and a Republican bill on, what was it, performance-based budgeting, obviously that's grounds for compromise. But, you know, we are the majority party, so it doesn't make sense for us to...
The other thing is that this is a joint committee that will have to actually refer its recommendations to standing committees of the legislature. And I'm sure, though, the committee will be a 20-member committee, which will be large, that will invite participation from all of the members.
Right.
It's not a unique thing for a member to sit at the dais, whether, you know, on a particular subject, whether they're on a committee or not on a committee. We intend this to be participatory and collaborative.
If I could just finish with that question, we won't be successful if we don't have bipartisan support. So we are going to conduct the hearings that are inclusive and try to aim towards consensus.